So with not long to go before Resident Evil 2 Remake launches, we've been wondering how many people will be picking the game up having not played the original Resident Evil 2. And even if you have, it's over 20 years old now, so it's very possible you might need a bit of a refresher on the basics.
We've got unfinished business.
So we've put together a list to help bring new players and old veterans alike up to speed. Here are 10 things you must know about Resident Evil 2 before you play the remake. First off, a little bit of backstory about Resident Evil 2 as a whole. As the number suggests, it was the second entry in the now extremely long-running survival horror franchise Resident Evil, also known as Biohazard in Japan. It first launched on the original PlayStation in 1998 and sold 4.96 million copies. The franchise as a whole has sold 83 million units. Ever since then, RE2 has been re-released or ported multiple times, enhanced with new additions like Extreme Battle Mode, as well as support for analog controllers and slight graphical enhancements. But this is its first proper remake, following on from the original Resident Evil's GameCube remake in 2002. So what about the story of Resident Evil 2? You might have heard whispers of A/B scenarios and zapping systems, but what does that all mean? Well, essentially, when you first begin a game of Resident Evil 2 Original, you can choose to begin the game as either Claire or Leon. That becomes your Claire A scenario or your Leon A scenario. You'll play through the entire game's campaign with this character, accumulating items and seeing the story unfold from their perspective. Upon seeing the story through to its conclusion, however, you'd unlock a second scenario. If you'd started the game as Claire, you'd unlock Leon B, or Claire B if you'd started as Leon. And you'd play through the story again, but this time from the other character's point of view, witnessing events you might only have heard about during your first playthrough, or finding different paths through familiar locations. Thus, there were in effect 4 different entire playthroughs of this game that players could experience, and each one could add new layers of detail and understanding to the overall story. For the time, hell, even now, this was an incredible level of intricacy for the plot of a horror game. Not only that, but picking up certain items in an A scenario would make them unavailable to your B scenario character, meaning there was an extra layer of strategy for players to get to grips with as they navigated inventories and played to Claire and Leon's particular strengths.
Oh, wait! Don't shoot!
Get down!
Keen to know more about Claire and Leon themselves? Well, Claire Redfield is a college student and motorcycle enthusiast who turns up in Raccoon City at the beginning of RE2 in search of her brother, Chris Redfield, one of the lead characters of Resident Evil 1. Chris has already left for Europe by the time Claire reaches Raccoon City. He's off to investigate Umbrella Pharmaceuticals, who, as you'll soon learn, are pretty much behind all the evil stuff that goes on in any Resident Evil game. Jill Valentine, the other protagonist from RE1, is also in Raccoon City at the same time, but during the events of Resident Evil 2 is unconscious after an encounter with Nemesis and is in need of a vaccine from Carlos Oliveira. But that's a whole other story. Claire soon meets Leon, and the two take refuge in the Raccoon City police station, though they frequently split up or get separated. Though she's basically a civilian, Claire is no pushover. She'd been taught hand-to-hand combat and how to handle basic firearms by her brother prior to his disappearance. The main crux of Claire's story within RE2 revolves around protecting Sherry Birkin, a little girl lost in Raccoon City who happens to be the daughter of the scientists responsible for the creation of the virus that led to people turning into flesh-eating zombies. You'll meet both her parents as the story progresses, though let's just say you probably won't warm to them. The main thing to know about Claire is she may not be able to single-handedly punch a boulder into a volcano or suplex a zombie's head off, but she's fast on her feet and she's got an iron will and isn't afraid to step up when she needs to. A fun little Easter egg, the 1998 model Harley-Davidson Night Train bike that she rides into Raccoon City is fitted with a license plate that reads J2198, representing the original game's Japanese release, January 21st, 1998. The Resident Evil 2 remake arrives 21 years and 4 days later. Another little fact for those who might not be entirely clued up on the franchise history, deluxe and steelbook editions of the remake come with a DLC outfit for Claire called the Elsa Walker outfit. Elsa Walker was the original protagonist for Resident Evil 2, and the character that eventually became Claire. She was a motorcycle racer studying at Raccoon University when the outbreak kicked off. Basically, RE2's director Hideki Kamiya decided to scrap this original version of Resident Evil 2 when it was relatively close to being finished, saying the development team just wasn't satisfied with how it was going. This scrapped version, now referred to as Resident Evil 1.5, was pretty similar to how the story of RE2 ended up, and Elsa Walker turned into Claire Redfield, though they share a lot of similarities, most noticeably their love of motorbikes.
I'm not gonna hurt you.
I said don't move.
I'm just passing through. I'm gonna ask you to lower that weapon.
Rookie cop Leon S. Kennedy's backstory has been tweaked a tiny bit for the remake. In late December 2018, the official Capcom Twitter account posted this bit of blurb in relation to Leon's past prior to the events of the RE2 remake. New officer Leon S. Kennedy was assigned to Raccoon City. Before going on duty, Kennedy was at home on standby, waiting for his orders. After no one contacted him and feeling something was off, Kennedy headed to the station. Days later, after arriving in Raccoon City, his life changed. Pretty standard, and when you see Leon in action in the RE2 remake, it makes perfect sense. He's still very green, he's very scared, and attempts to follow police protocol long after it's fairly obvious that the usual rules no longer apply in the apocalypse. However, some fans are mourning a little detail that made the original Leon feel a little bit more interesting to them. In his original story, detailed in the game's official guide, Leon broke up with his girlfriend on what would have been his first day on the force, leading him to getting drunk in some random motel. After passing out, he wakes up with a stinking hangover and rushes to the police station, having completely missed his first shift. Now, this really isn't important to the overall plot of the game, and it's never even brought up once the outbreak takes hold, but it's a detail that is significant to fans because, well, it just makes you feel a bit more sorry for the guy. That's a pretty rough day no matter who you are. A note about the police station, by the way, while we're here. If you aren't familiar with the Resident Evil series' many quirks, you might be wondering why the hell a police station would have so many weird suits of armor or hidden rooms or bizarre medallions and gemstone puzzles to open doors. This is explained to a degree when you discover that the building was formerly an art museum and has since been converted into the police station. There's actually a pamphlet explaining this in the remake. But the series is full of strange touches like these, so if you're new to it all, just don't worry about it too much. It's also good to know that even people who have played the original RE2 aren't at that much of an advantage over you. Capcom itself has stated that while many of the locations may look similar in design to the one in the original game, this museum turned police station is full of surprises for both seasoned veterans and newcomers alike.
Damn it. We need a keycard.
We briefly mentioned Sherry Birkin, the little girl who accompanies Claire at key points throughout her campaign. Sherry is loosely based on the character of Newt from Aliens, as the development team confirmed to us when we chatted to them at Gamescom last year. The remake's director, Kazunori Kadoi, said that the original Sherry was basically very childish. We wanted to add depth to her, because you're looking at her in a more photorealistic environment, and the characters look more human and realistic, that naturally means we have to add more depth to them, because they're a lot less cartoonish and two-dimensional. Back in the day, the storytelling was revolutionary because horror games didn't have stories. We have to meet fan expectations now with games designed for 2019. So the remake's Sherry, the first time Claire meets her, looks like she's seen some terrible things. Rather than screaming, "Help me," like the original Sherry, she quietly warns Claire that you need help. Newt from Aliens was something of a reference point, Kadoi revealed to us. The first time you meet her and seeing, yeah, she's seen some serious stuff.
What's this all about?
Child endangerment, for starters.
This reworking of the original characters goes for pretty much everyone featured in the Resident Evil 2 remake, including one we haven't mentioned yet. Ada Wong. Ada was actually technically mentioned in the original Resident Evil as the password to the computer of a researcher named John Clemens. Though seemingly innocuous at the time, it turns out that Ada was a spy sent to infiltrate Umbrella and steal intelligence for her employer, a rival company. unbeknownst to John, who died during the initial outbreak. Just like Sherry accompanies Claire for portions of her campaign, Ada joins Leon for sections of his. Additionally, you could control Ada in the original RE2, but the gameplay was short and pretty basic, and definitely didn't include any high-tech gadgets like the EMF visualizer. Ada's playable sections in the RE2 remake look set to flesh out her character much more than in the original. Not surprising given the amount of love and attention the character has understandably gotten in the years since the original release. She's best known for her iconic red dress, sassy one-liners, and somewhat complicated relationship with Leon. So how about some of the monsters we'll be facing off against in the remake? You might have already seen Lickers, horrific creatures that look a little bit like inside-out anteaters that leap from the ceiling and thrash at your character with either its razor-sharp claws or gross long tongues. It may not be immediately obvious to new players, especially if you're running around in a panic, but these guys are completely blind. As demonstrated by Capcom in a recently released gameplay clip, if you hold your nerve, you can actually walk right past them. Shine your torch at them, pass them by completely, so long as you move very slowly. They are extremely sensitive to noise, so any sudden movements will tip them off to your location, resulting in a pretty awful time for you. Mind you, if you want, you can just deal with them by unloading some flame rounds in their face. It's up to you, and how much ammo you're carrying.
Jesus, stay back!
And then there's the Tyrant series T00. You've probably seen a lot of people online refer to him as Mr. X. This guy was one of 6 mass-produced T-103 Tyrants that were airlifted into Raccoon City by Umbrella, but he was given a separate mission to the others: to recover a sample of the G-Virus, the genetically engineered virus responsible for the zombie outbreak. He actually isn't referred to as Mr. X in the original Resident Evil 2 game. This nickname was given to him in the novelization of Resident Evil 2, City of the Dead, by Claire. In a slightly dated reference, she calls him Dr. Evil as well. As a result, he's been called Mr. X in RE2 merchandise and later retellings of the story. There are lots of tyrants in Resident Evil titles, so don't worry if you're feeling a little bit confused between a T00, a T103, and a T002. All you really need to know is they're all absolutely terrifying, won't stop hunting you until their mission is complete, and nothing short of a rocket launcher is strong enough to bring them down. So, run. That said, Mr. X's hat is a nifty fashion choice new to the remake, and you can shit it off his big mean head if you like. That's most of the basics covered, but will you need to have played the original Resident Evil 2 to be able to properly enjoy the remake? Well, not really. It works on its own as a standalone story for sure. If you're curious though, it's definitely worth checking out the 2002 remake of the original game, which is now available on PC and current consoles and will give you a good grounding in the world and how older Resident Evil games work in terms of inventory and resource management. You should also know that the developers of the RE2 remake previously confirmed that the rather challenging extra modes of the original game, the Fourth Survivor and the Tofu Survivor, will be included in the remake. In the Fourth Survivor, you play as Hunk, an agent of Umbrella, the previously mentioned evil pharmaceutical conglomerate, as he attempts to get out of Raccoon City, facing off against scores of monsters with very few bullets. The Tofu Survivor is basically the same scenario, except you play as a big lump of actual tofu, with only a knife to protect yourself with. Yep, really. That should look pretty fun in HD. Anyway, the main takeaway is you shouldn't worry about missing out on too much if you decide to pick up the RE2 remake despite never having played the original. The development team has stated that it has been painstakingly reworked from the ground up to make more sense to newcomers and appeal to a modern gaming audience. And from what we've played so far, this really shows. Additionally, the original Resident Evil 2 director, Hideki Kamiya, has given his blessing for the remake after going out for drinks with the new development team. "I heard that my friend is directing the RE2 remake," he tweeted. "Let's trust him and wait for new information. I went drinking with him last year and told him, do as you like. That's the way directors should do. I trust him and his team." Well, if the original creator is on board, who are we to argue? And all that said, if you want to see what all the hype is about for yourself, you can currently download the original Resident Evil 2 for PSP and PS3 on the PlayStation Store. Well, not long to go now. Are you excited to play, or is there anything about the RE2 remake that you still aren't sold on? Let us know in the comments, or check out one of our other Resident Evil 2 remake videos, including ones where we deep dive into the new gameplay details and see Claire, Leon and Ada Wong in action facing up to Mr. X. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you back here for more Resident Evil videos as we get closer to launch. Thanks for watching. Bye!